Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Welcome back to Let Us In Podcast. Today we're talking about the Chucky franchise.
Yes.
I'm Justine, aka JustineUFF.
I'm Crystal, creeping it spooky.
And I'm Chucky. Want to play?
Heidi Ho. I'm Emma, aka Emma of the Impact. If we had more time, there's a lot of really awesome stuff coming out in September, October, so we're a little bit busier than usual. So I would have wanted to do the history of spooky dolls, but I didn't have the time for that. To talk about Child's Play / Chucky franchise, it's crazy how Don Mancini is involved in all of them, and he directs 3 of the films, and he's heavily involved in the show. That this show, is it over 30 years at this point? But around 30 years, it's changed so much in tone. It's crazy with how they try so hard to keep the continuity, but then they go crazy on it. And I've noticed something about being a person on TikTok. It makes me notice how Chucky, more so than even Freddy Krueger, who's like the other one of the slashers that talks. Michael doesn't talk, Leatherface doesn't talk, Jason doesn't talk. That really sticks with people, even people that aren't necessarily part of the horror franchise. And younger people, I see teenagers who are crazy about Chucky. And I was wondering, why Chucky? And I think part of it is that it used to be on Stars all the time. Like you could watch it almost every day. And that was when anybody could have some premium channels, or it came in some cable packages where it wasn't just rich kids or very upper middle class kids that had HBO. So I think it's part of it is access. And I think the camp is very charming. Don Mancini has a story by credit, is the only thing he has credited to him in the first Child's Play. But this is really his baby. It's his baby. It's his doll. He's really a cool guy. He really carries it on, starting with the second one and into the others. I really don't have much of a history that we won't go over in the everything else. There's 3 big hotties in this for me. 3. So I guess I don't have as much history as I usually do.
No, that's fine. Child's Play was the first horror movie I ever saw that I can remember seeing.
How old were you?
Yeah, 4.
Oh, wow.
It was 4. And I remember it scaring me. I remember a scene where he's like running and there's like wet asphalt and you could see his shadow before you see like him for a while. And that scene was the scene that I'd always have to stop the movie on after I'd seen it once already, because I would freak myself out and realize that nope, it's still too scary for me. I can't watch it. So Child's Play scared me a lot when I was a kid. I think I rewatched it until I was 10 maybe, and then I watched them all. And I think that another one had come out at that point, more recent. I can't remember which one. It might have been Bride of Chucky, actually.
1988 is when the first one came out. Child's Play 2, 1990. 1991 was Child's Play 3, and then Bride of Chucky was 7 years later in 1998. But I remember that being
That's the one then. So I think it was Bride of Chucky came out, and that is when I'd seen it. I decided to go back and watch them again finally. So it wasn't until then that I went and rewatched them or watched like the second or third ones. I might have seen the second one in between there, but I don't think so. I think Nightmare on Elm Street ruined me of watching sequels. And then Dream Warriors gave me a false sense of
Because
security.
they're amazing, all the sequels.
Dream Warriors was the only one I could watch when I was a kid because it was the least scary to me.
Oh, scary. I was like, it's bad, and I was about to.
No, like I never got, sometimes you can watch sequels and it's because they get more lighthearted. Like the House movies. I liked those as a kid, but I didn't like the first one because the first one was much scarier. But I liked all of the ones after that. So I feel like those ones made me think I could watch sequels. And then Nightmare on Elm Street was like, nope, sequels are scary, except for the third one I could watch. So it was the only one that I watched. And the Child's Play franchise was the same for me. It was all scary up until I think Bride of Chucky. And then it was, maybe the third one was a little funnier.
Interesting. I was never
Yeah.
scared of Chucky or Child's Play. I think for me it was like a really good introduction into horror because
Yeah.
it was a nice middle ground. It had comedy and it was a doll, so it didn't seem as scary to me. I'm personally not scared of dolls. I know some people are, but it also still had that really good gore factor. But
Some of them
Yeah.
have really great deaths.
oh
Really
yeah,
Yeah.
really good ones.
I do love Chris Sarandon. I love Chris
great.
Sarandon.
Who's Chris Sarandon? I don't know
He,
names. I'm terrible at
he's
it.
Mike in it. He's also he's from Fright Night and Princess Bride.
Oh, the detective in the first one.
Yeah. Is he a detective? I thought he was like her boyfriend.
No, he's the detective that's out to
Why did I
get
miss
Charles Lee Ray.
I remember that he had killed Charles Lee Ray, but for some reason I remember him telling her that, like she was supposed to have known that, and she was upset that he didn't tell her that.
Well, you
And
watched
I
it
don't know
more
why.
recent than I did, so
I
don't
literally
know.
watched it today, and for some reason, but I was working too, so I might have misunderstood the context. I don't remember.
Well, so speaking of romance, Catherine Hicks and Kevin Yeager met each other on the set, and they're still married. It's
That's so
cute.
sweet.
It's cute. He designed Chucky.
She's great.
She is great in this movie. She's really the main character more so than
Oh,
Andy.
totally.
When Kevin Yeager, who made the Crypt Keeper for Tales of the Crypt, he had some leftover eyes from Chucky. So Chucky and the Crypt Keeper have the same eyes.
Ooh,
I love the Crypt Keeper too. Another icon of horror.
yeah.
Creeper Robber just did a drop, and I missed it. I missed it because I wasn't
Was
paying
the
attention.
Demon Knight one?
Yeah, that's why I shared it with you guys. I was like, because I
Yeah.
missed it, and it does the shirt that I wanted is not in my size because that stuff just goes like that.
Damn.
I remember
Anyways,
seeing Child's Play, I think 1 through 3, maybe into Bride as a teenager, but I don't remember anything very specific about my first viewings because I had made a mission of seeing all the slashers and the sequels, and that was part of that. I'm not as much of a redhead as Chucky is, little red-haired demon. Something interesting about Don Mancini is the idea of Chucky originally was about consumerism in the 80s. And he based it off the good guy dolls, or what it's called in the movies. I can't remember what the actual it was something similar to it, where the dolls that almost looked like Chucky. And then the Cabbage Patch dolls. When I was a toddler, it's one of my first thing I think I remember being scared of. Someone gave me a Cabbage Patch doll, and I remember as a toddler, it was like in one of those fake things a baby sits and eats on. A high chair? Yes.
oh yeah, my chair.
It's in a fake
think the
chair. I don't even remember who bought this for me. It was my mother, because she would know better, I think. And it was like in the corner of my room, and I remember standing in my doorway just staring at this thing staring at me, and I was terrified of it. That's probably why I'm not a mother.
When I was younger, the really popular dolls were those timeout dolls.
We're the same age.
So-
I don't remember those.
You don't remember
Oh,
those? Everybody
I
had the
do.
timeout dolls. There were
But
these
that wasn't
creepy
for
little
kids,
realistic
though. That was
kids
for, like,
that sat in the
adults.
corners of people. Yeah, I know. It's even worse because they were like realistic and like
They look like
you didn't
real
play
kids.
with them, and they
I
didn't
don't
even have
remember these.
faces. Like
So it looks like a real toddler, and it's
Toddler
goes
size
like
in
this
toddler
usually, and
clothes.
it's leaning on something, so you have it leaning
Like it's in
against the wall
timeout.
like this.
What?
And it's
Yeah.
really
Weird.
because because even if it's there, it's one of those things you're like, oh, it's
Because
not.
it's life size.
Did you have some in your house?
Anatomically correct. My friends' parents always had, like the moms had them, and grandmas had them. My grandma had one. I'm pretty sure like her friends had them. And my grandparents, when they lived in Marysville, they ran a 55 and older community apartment, like low income 55 and older apartment complex. And my grandfather was like the maintenance guy. So he would go around and fix all the apartments. Anytime I visited, I would go with my grandpa around and help him. All of the old people in those apartments had timeout dolls, I swear. All of them.
Weird.
I don't think I ever encountered one until I was like.
First of all,
teenager.
sadistic.
never seen
Like,
one.
why is a decoration of a kid in timeout?
Yeah, what is the reasoning behind those? Ew.
Oh, I just love the look of a kid in timeout. What?
Yeah, that's so weird.
Bizarre. Ew. Yeah, so those were around my growing up. Those and Furbies were the things that scared me that were like kid toys.
Well, Furbies were later. Furbies were later.
love
I think
Furbies.
we were in elementary.
There were my buddy dolls also. But what I was saying is when I experienced Child's Play and like a scary toy movie like Child's Play, it was my age. I was between 4 and 10. That was my growing up and experiencing scary toys. It's also around the time of Slappy from Goosebumps and
Yeah.
all of those. Ever since Child's Play, any scary doll or toy is compared to Chucky. My experiences with scary toys are obviously in a different generation than Chucky, but it's relative to my experience at the same time that I experienced Chucky, if that makes sense. I obviously wasn't there when Chucky came out. I was a year old, like
You were a
when Chucky
baby.
dropped. I was a baby. But my mom collected dolls. She collected those porcelain ones that were always on stands, and they
The
were
Hubble
typically in like
dolls?
they were porcelain, they were small faced, like very small dolls,
Yeah.
and they were like really expensive, and they came in like different outfits and stuff, and they were like a collector thing that my mom collected, and they were typically like saloon style like outfits and stuff, but they were also
I've seen, yeah, I know
creepy.
what you're talking about. I don't know if there's a particular brand, but I do know what you're talking about. Like,
Those were really popular amongst the moms also when I was
My mom
younger
had them
and stuff.
too. Yeah.
my
Yeah,
mom hates dolls.
up there with cow
Mm.
decor.
Oh my god, my mom's whole kitchen was cows.
Cows,
That's
right?
so
Sunflowers?
funny.
Cows and
Yeah.
sunflowers.
There wasn't a
That's so
rooster or two
funny.
in there?
There were roosters. I do remember you had a couple
Awesome.
different types of moms. You
Yeah.
had the pure just sunflower moms, you had the
Mhm.
cow moms, you had the chicken moms who had the
Yep.
roosters and the chickens. You had I think there were like bees too. There was bee moms.
I knew a pig mom. She had
Oh
a
yeah,
whole kitchen of pigs.
pigs.
Yep.
Pigs were one too.
Actually, when
Yeah,
we do our ghost stories, I've got a good story relating to my mom's cow kitchen. So you guys
that's
can stay
funny.
tuned for that one
Is it
day.
a ghost cow?
I'm pretty sure my mom was like
Kind
a
of.
cow sunflower mom because she was a farm mom. Anything
Yeah.
that would
So
be
was
on a
mine.
farm that was kitschy, she had, but she had like sunflower decor, like borders, like wallpaper
Oh
border
my
all
god, your
around.
mom is my mom. She
Like
painted her trim yellow to match the sunflowers with all the cow stuff.
yeah,
That's so
yeah,
funny.
yeah. So that's a little off topic of child's play,
Yeah.
but
Well, Don Mancini's early draft of Child's Play, what he wanted it to be, because Kirshner wrote the screenplay along with someone else.
mm,
He wanted to call the movie Blood Buddy, and the idea was that the Chucky doll, or what My Buddy doll, or whatever, good guy doll, would be a doll that gets injured, and then you put bandages on it, baby oopsie, whatever, the ones that peed, but like it bled, and then
yeah.
the other people that wrote the screenplay, which fair enough, I think is actually a valid criticism. They're like, who would buy a doll that bleeds? But the idea would be that Andy's blood gets mixed up with the doll's blood. I actually see it happening. If they have a baby oopsie, why wouldn't they have, or whatever, the baby that wet itself?
I
Exactly.
Why
could
wouldn't they have?
I could see the marketing team come up with that idea and someone in the room being like, "We're not trying to manufacture serial killers."
Yeah.
With
Well,
the
I
goal
would
of
Kids
like
like
assume for if
stabbing
they
their dolls.
actually did that for a doll for children, it would be like maybe it turns red and you put a bandage on it. You wouldn't gush
yeah,
blood or
Okay.
fake blood even.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
the idea of Chucky became more and more as the movies went on, according to Don Mancini, is it was like more of a manifestation of a little boy's unconscious rage. And the idea
Mm.
that Andy would injure the doll enough that it would bleed and that their blood would mix somehow. So
Mm.
it's the idea
Do you
that
remember the movie Cameron's Closet?
no.
No.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Is it like that?
Oh, Cameron's Closet is based off of a kid who like turns out to have like special like powers, like ESP or something. He gets a hold of some sort of artifact that one of his parents found or whatever, and it's like a demon artifact, and he ends up manifesting his stuff in his closet. The demon, the demon ends up
Oh.
it becomes like a portal to this demon in his closet, but everything he thinks of or imagines starts to happen. It's fucking scary. Well, at least it was when I was a kid. I haven't rewatched it. That might be what I need to like revisit to see if it's actually as scary. I remember a bleeding like gooey eye scene where like black stuff was coming out of like his stepdad's face. Like
That's
and then
scary.
he threw him out the window or something. He deserved it. He was like abusive or something. That is a wildly dark premise, and you have to wonder if Mancini would have or could have made that work as well. Sorry, back on track. What were you saying?
But something interesting about Chucky, even though he's a bad guy, he's a misogynist, he's a lot of things, but he always is going against the establishment in a little way, or somebody in authority that looms their authority over others, which doesn't make him an anti-hero at all. I'm not saying that, but it does seem to be a trend, which
Yeah.
I only noticed when I was like searching for this, because there's certain things that we associate with the Chucky franchise, and as time has gone on, Chucky and especially and Tiffany have become queer icons, and we'll get into the whole Glenn or Glenda thing of it, which I researched very much as I wasn't sure what Glenn or Glenda was supposed to be, in the sense of, was it split personality kind of deal, or are they actually different people?
Yeah.
I think I figured that out, but we'll get into that. But it's interesting how Chucky's not a good guy. He's not an anti-hero. No one really says that he is. People like Chucky like the same way they like Freddy Krueger. There's a charisma there sometimes. You just
He's
saw
like
your
distant hedonist.
maybe it's because he's adorable, because is the reason why he gets away with certain things. I think he's adorable.
I think there's a freedom to him. He cares about you doing whatever you want, and he doesn't like to be told how to feel, think, or what to do. It just so happens that's combined with someone who likes to murder. So you get a doll that likes to murder. He's like, I like to do this stuff. It brings me pleasure, so I'm going to do it. That's where it gets bad. But I think he is a hedonist. Like, he just enjoys things. But I think that
Yeah.
comes with him also speaking his mind when he shouldn't, saying things he shouldn't, doing things he shouldn't, because he's also a psychopath.
And as I say, he's
Yeah.
a misogynist, but he has no respect for anybody. But it seems
No.
like a little extra with women, but he has no respect for anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the name Charles Lee Ray comes from 3 killers. It's a mixture of Charles Manson, Lee Harvey Oswald, and James Earl Ray. That's how they came up with that name. I was trying to keep track today because, again, if you're not thinking about it, the lore of Chucky gets a little confusing if you haven't just
Yeah.
watched all
It
of the
can.
movies.
Yeah.
So, first one, sexy hot actor Brad Dourif playing Charles Lee Ray ends up in a shootout, gets shot, says the incantation to Damballa, who's a real god, by the way, usually associated with
Risky.
fertility and all the usual things. Usually, the depiction of Damballa is a white snake. Apparently, this is me
Oh.
doing a quick internet search, so I don't know much about it, but Damballa exists to some people. Well, I don't know if so much in currently, but anyway.
Is it
He
voodoo
does
though?
what?
Is it actually voodoo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it has nothing to do with killer dolls or anything, or transferring your spirit into anything. Doesn't have anything to do with that. But the god does
They
exist.
they did not do a quick Google search. You mean? I guess.
Yeah.
Google,
Or
you know
this
what I
is
mean.
something that people that are serious franchise observers will make a joke about. So in Curse of Chucky, Fiona Dourif as her character is looking something up on the internet, and it looks just like Google. Instead of where Google, it says internet search. But then in Cult of Chucky, Andy, who's having a date in the beginning, Andy Barclay, as an adult, is having a date in the beginning, and he says, I did a Google search. And people are like, what happened to internet search? What happened to internet search? So they didn't do an internet or a Google search. I forgot what I was talking about while explaining
Oh,
that.
the voodoo element, the god, the white snake,
Damballa.
Damballa. Okay. So
Damballa.
the first one, how this all, and that this is something that part of why I think they have such a sense of humor about the voodoo is because not Don Mancini's idea, and he's the only one that's remained throughout. So I think he likes to poke fun at it as much as I think that with the remake of Chucky, which we'll get into, which is I don't think it's bad. Because it doesn't have the charm and everything, but I don't think it's bad. It makes
think
total
it's bad
sense
either.
that they make a doll that's been programmed differently. I can't remember. Was it programmed differently or it had
It was faulty. So it was
Right.
like an AI, but the doll was a faulty version that she got from her work that they were going to send back to the company to
manufacturer?
like the manufacturer, thank you. And she's what happens to these dolls when they go back to the manufacturer? Are they just going to get rid of it? He's like, yeah, probably incinerate it. She's like, I just have it for my son. And so she just takes it home. She basically blackmails the guy to let her have it because she saw him screwing some coworker in the warehouse and he's married. So she uses that against him and takes it home. I do not hate the remake. I actually
I
enjoyed
didn't
it.
hate it.
I didn't mind it either.
It
I
had
just
some
liked
cool kills.
it has some cool kills, and and they made a logical step. If I had to make a Chucky remake, I'd be like, let's have something more faulty happen with the doll, or it's trying to simulate you. It makes more sense than a voodoo thing.
You could have completely taken it out of the franchise and called it anything else and designed the doll to look like anything else. They would have ran into people saying this is a ripoff of Chucky, even if they didn't have the voodoo element and the killer inside the doll kind of situation going on, and they kept the theme that they have now, they would have been called a ripoff if they hadn't done it.
Mm.
But they're called a poor remake that because they did do it. I don't think they could have won there. The story is really cool to me. I think the idea
Yeah.
of having your smart home and smart tech that it can access from Bluetooth or Wi-Fi be used against you is really cool. And it
I agree.
opened up some neat elements and cool creative kills and
Yeah.
the whole shopping center scene.
Yeah.
Loved it. Do you remember the
And it
kill
felt like
where
an homage to the big set piece that started with Child Play 2 at the
yeah, totally. Except for it was like mayhem because there were so many people in there. Do you remember the kill where the guy is like hanging from a pipe to get away from him and like turns on a table saw underneath him and then turns up the heat so that the pipes become scalding hot so he falls onto the table saw?
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Yeah. I really liked the
loved it.
modernized version of it. I
Yeah.
just didn't like how the doll looked. I
Me
wasn't a
neither.
huge fan of the
I
look
think
of
they
them,
probably.
but
My guess is they were going for unsettling, which worked, but at the same time, I still didn't like it.
yeah, wasn't a fan of how his face moved and looked. I don't know, but I did
Honestly,
like the modernized version. I do like that.
Great voiceover work by Mark Hamill. Big Mark Hamill fan. So
yeah.
and he's an experienced voiceover actor. Probably my favorite Joker. So
Yeah. Sorry, I took us off on a tangent on the new one, but I did just
no,
watch it
it's fine.
today. So I just revisiting it made me realize that I do like it a lot more than I think other people do. It was fun.
I see a lot of
Yeah,
folks say,
it's
"Why
fun.
didn't they ask Brad Dourif to do the voice?" And
Mm.
Brad Dourif was asked, and
Mm.
he declined because he was pleading loyalty to Don Mancini. So he declined. He was
Mm.
asked, and he declined because he's super.
Did Don
sensitive.
Mancini not want this reboot to happen?
Oh no, not really.
Mm.
Because what happened was it happened after Child's Play 1, and this is where Steven Spielberg makes a slight cameo, kind of. So he advised Don Mancini and I think also John Lafayette, who directed Child's Play 2.
John
John Lafayette, who directed Child's Play 2 and produced the first one. What happened was that United Artists had been bought out. So there was like a changeover with studios, and they weren't interested in making a sequel. So what ended up happening, long story short, from advice from Steven Spielberg, is
Mhm.
that Don Mancini ended up with the rights to Chucky, but not Child's Play, which I can't really, I don't know entertainment clauses and all that kind of stuff of the idea that because it's very similar stories. Child's Play 2, which is Don Mancini not owning the rights to Child's Play, I don't know.
Mhm.
It becomes complicated down the road with that. But the Don Mancini was not asked to be a part of it, and because it's so much his creation, he's never really talked dirty about it. But I can't imagine he was a fan.
That's fair.
I did like Child's Play 2 also.
That's considered that's one of the fan favorite ones.
Yeah,
That
that's
it
a good one.
besides Bride of Chucky. I feel like the Child's Play 2 is like the best, like one of the best solid, just like horror killer
It's
doll movies.
scariest, I think. There's more
Mhm.
tension building and there's more not seeing the doll like killing. It's a lot more POV. It's probably what I like it a lot. I love POV kills. There's a lot
Which
throughout
is
the whole
weird because
franchise.
you don't like
But
found footage.
I know you say that every time I say that.
You
I
do.
do. I do. I like POVs because they're not, you're seeing everything even more. It's the payoff
Mhm.
that's an issue with found footage, remember? You definitely see it in POV. I liked the manufacturer scenes in the second one. I think the first one, the mom's acting is so good. And that whole scene is so iconic when like she discovers the batteries aren't in there and
It says batteries
Mhm.
not included on the box, and she like
yeah.
turns it over, and
Yeah.
there's no batteries in the doll. That actually was a
Yeah.
scary moment for me, even
It
as
is
as an
scary.
older child. It's
It
like
is.
and
But I
rewatching it, I'm
also like that
"Shh."
she believed her son a lot sooner than anybody else. Like she's like, my kid just lie. Like she trusted her maternal instincts.
Which I
And
think
really,
that's what a good mom does. It's like
it
he's
is
not the
what a
kind
good
of kid
mom
that
does.
just makes shit up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second one now, what's going on? Chucky, you know what to expect from this doll. You're
I feel like
waiting for
Andy
it
does
to
too.
happen.
He knows
Yeah.
no adult's gonna believe him. So what is he gonna do? And then Kyla's
Yeah.
pretty cool, who's adopted
Sister.
foster sister. Yes.
Yeah. And the whole idea that she's like in a psych ward and he's like
Mom,
having to
yeah.
handle it by himself and stuff. Like,
That's rough. That's dark.
Mm.
That's tough.
it is
I can't
dark.
imagine.
Seems to me like because you expect it, it's an interesting. It reminds me of why I like Aliens more than I like Alien. In Alien, the difference in why I like Alien a lot is because of the tension building. That first time that you watch the franchise, you don't know what's happening or when it's coming. But on like second, third viewings and stuff, Aliens to me becomes more rewatchable because now you know what the aliens are. We're going back into it basically. Now it's more of an action flick. And I think this is what slowly happened with the Child's Play franchise, but instead of action, it gets more comedic. It gets more silly, and they really embrace that. And that is what separates the Child's Play franchise and the Jason franchise from franchises like Halloween, in my opinion. I think it's so smart to just
Because they went full hog, yeah.
lean in.
Although
Yeah,
I love Halloween. I love that they try to
I do.
take all this ridiculous Men in Black stuff seriously. I can't get enough of that shit.
Yeah.
I can't. But I had to pick between Halloween. Anyway, with Child's Play 2 is how does Chucky come back to life? Like that doll was burned in the first one, right? Like how do they do that? So it's not really a great way for them to choose to do this.
Souls just floating around Andy for a while.
What happens is it's to prove that there's nothing wrong with the doll, right? The company takes the charred remains of the doll and they refurbish it, which come on, this is America. Everyone just throws things away. Anyway, America
any
and probably
company would
Canada
do
too.
that.
Crystal, they just throw it away, Crystal.
I guess I'm Canadian. I don't know.
Anyway, America, they probably just throw
Can't
it away.
vouch.
There's no
No,
reason
that's
to
what she
refurbish
was
the
saying.
doll.
She was like, is it like that in Canada too? Like they would just throw it away. They
Oh, I
wouldn't.
think I don't know. Hard to say. I don't work
I
with
just don't
dolls.
see them refurbishing a doll. It doesn't make sense. This is
Mm-mm.
how. So it's the same
Strange
framework
PR
of the original
move.
doll. Yeah, framework of the doll. So that's how it happens. There's no amulet yet. And so the idea is that, which is Chucky's still on his mission, which he learned from his friend that knew voodoo, that he learned voodoo from, is that you can transfer your soul into the first human soul you revealed your secret, that you're a living serial killer in a doll's body, which is Andy.
It's a
And
little on the nose. Whenever a
So-
plot is like very manufactured to get around a like problem,
because it's a movie about a killer doll,
Who cares,
silly
right?
things. Even when they're taking themselves seriously, for some reason,
Yeah.
it gets away with it. Like you're not tuning into a movie about a killer doll for nuance.
See, I wouldn't even have cared about that little plot detail until we're sitting here and analyzing the film, and I'm like,
Oh yeah. And the
silly.
third one,
who
which I don't
greenlighted
know,
that?
I don't know why they didn't continue this on the series, considering there becomes so many more Chuckies later. The third one, how Charles Lee Ray comes back as Chucky again, is that they are carting a dead body over it, and because Chucky, what happens with Chucky, which we find out in the second one, and a little bit the first one, but more so in the second one especially, is that the longer that he's in that doll body, the more the doll body becomes human. So it can bleed, it can get injured, just like any other human being, the longer he's in there. So the third one, they're moving the doll that has more human features in the manufacturing factory, where there's the big climax that's freaking awesome in the second one, especially when the guy's eyes get gouged out. Love it.
You love a good eye gouging.
I love a good eye gouging. It's true. Chucky's blood gets into the batter where they're making a bunch of new dolls. And that's how Chucky comes back as Chucky, the good guy doll, the same good guy doll. And then it isn't until... So is Bride of Chucky's the fourth one, technically? Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. That's when the amulet comes into play. So Tiffany brings Chucky back with just the incantation. She doesn't need the amulet. But then they need the amulet once she becomes a doll. It's like very murky. It's like Friday the 13th, 1 to 2. It's okay. So they need the amulet that is buried with Charles Lee Ray in where he was born, Hackensack, New Jersey, where I've actually family that lived there for a period of time. They weren't dolls.
No?
So the whole amulet of Dumball comes into it then, where they need that to...
And
to do
Child's Play 3 or Bride of
4.
Chucky?
Bride of Chucky is when the amulet comes into it. And the third one is the one that's always usually said is like the worst one, if you had to pick a worst one. But I think what happens with 3 is that it's just more of the same. It's not a terrible movie considering all the other ones, it's not terrible in comparison, but it's like more.
I honestly don't remember it except for Andy was older and in school.
It's my least
Like,
favorite. I hate that one.
couldn't rewatch
The
them all
military
because
school.
I was not prepared to pay for every single one except for the original and the remake were for free for me.
I do
So,
think in 3, the look of Chucky improves and the way he moves around, which is still they do a lot of animatronics. This usually takes 8 people to get like the animatronic work perfect.
yeah, there's some
And-
cool photos of like behind the scenes with like tubes coming out of the back of the doll because it's all pneumatic. The pneumatic. Cool. I interrupted
very
you.
cool.
Sorry.
and in all of them there is children, and the first one it was a child. I don't think I've seen children do it since, but usually it's a little person that does certain things that they can't really get an animatronic to do, that do certain movements for Chucky.
I think Bride of Chucky it might be my favorite. So we'll talk about our favorites at the end.
It's a fan
But
favorite.
it might be my favorite.
It's a good one.
I did rewatch that one today because I own this one already. Because it is one of my favorites. I rewatched this one the most out of the franchise. Katherine Heigl, isn't it? It reminded
John
me
Ritter.
today that she's actually not a good actress. Sorry, Katherine Heigl, you're just not a good actress.
Well, that was an early. I don't remember her in much, but that is an early role
Yeah.
for her.
Jennifer Aniston was great in Leprechaun.
That's true. Not that she's in it very much, but
She's not
it
in
doesn't
Leprechaun.
feel like she is. Not
Like
brother.
the main
Decent
character.
amount, though.
Yeah.
Decent amount, yeah.
But the real female lead of Bride of Chucky is definitely Jennifer Tilly. I feel like her dynamic and the whole like campiness of this film is what kind of revitalized the franchise. It brought it back, breathed some life into it. Where like the third one kind of just slumped it a little bit. Like that,
Yeah.
this might be the end of the franchise. But then no, out of nowhere they come up with Bride of Chucky, which was hilarious. It's so funny and over the top. Just Jennifer Tilly alone, her introduction when she kills that cop and just struts up and like
Like Living
is
Dead
smiling
girl.
Her nails.
yeah, and like
Yeah.
what an
Yeah.
icon.
I agree that
She's
she
so hot.
definitely she brought this franchise back. I was actually thinking about that today after watching the series again, and I was like, man, she's so good. They couldn't have
So
casted
good.
anybody else. Like nobody else
Mm-mm.
could play this role as good as her.
Do you guys know how she got the part?
No, I was tell us because I was wondering if maybe other people were asked or offered besides her.
So, Don Mancini writing Bride of Chucky. Every
Yeah.
time he wrote dialogue for Tiffany, he heard Jennifer Tilly's voice in his head. He's like, she has to be Tiffany. Jennifer Tilly's agent calls her and says, "I've got a major motion picture for you." And she's like, "Get offered major motion pictures." I think she's so busy. She's a professional poker player too. She's the first celebrity to win a World Series. She's fucking badass. So
I
she's
just
like,
want
"I'll
to
get-"
be her. Like
She got the call from her agent saying, "Oh, we got a major motion picture for you." And she's like, "Well, it's about a doll that kills people." And she's like, at first her thought was like a Chucky movie because she said, "I had this old fashioned idea that horror movies are what you do in the beginning of your career or the end of your career," which in the past has been true. And Don Mancini, she is Tiffany. He called her and he's like, why don't you have a lunch with me and my producer? And she's like, free lunch? Of course. So she goes and they go to kind of swanky place. And so they're having lunch talking. And then they pull out the Chucky doll and they start talking to it like it's a person. And they're like, if you play this movie, you can have one, like a Chucky doll. And she's like, a nice offer, but I'm not sure if I want one. But she thought about it. She said she took the script home.
Yeah.
Is what she did. And she read through it and she thought it was very clever and campy and fun, and she agreed to do it. And she figured it was going to be a one and done because she read the script. She was like, I'm going to die. And she particularly loved the Tiffany's death scene, which is fucking awesome, in the bathtub. How Bride of Frankenstein is playing, as Don Mancini intended this as the Bride of Frankenstein, the Chucky version of Bride of Frankenstein. Hearing her in any interview, she's just so delightful. She's so delightful, and her and Don Mancini, from shooting this and being a particular certain types of film lovers, they have actually become very close friends, and which is adorable. And that's how Seed of Chucky happened. Is they just were friends and they'd watch movies and then just brainstormed, and that's how Seed of Chucky came along. But Jennifer Tilly really revitalized this. It's a very smart move on Don Mancini's part. Like I don't think it would still be going on the way it is without Jennifer Tilly being added to it.
No, I agree.
Yeah. I didn't like Seed of Chucky as much, but I feel like Curse of Chucky again reeled it back in for me. It's a solid franchise.
There's not really any like bad movies in it. Like
There
there's
isn't,
some
no.
that are lesser fun, but there's some
Yeah.
really bad ones.
Yeah, I agree.
Seed of Chucky's another one that a lot of the time, not all the time, obviously, it's either a particular person that's a Chucky fan. It's either their favorite or least favorite. And I just rewatched Seed of Chucky. I've seen it many times.
Does it give you
Crazy
Scream 3 vibes?
Yes, they intentionally did that. It's intentionally
Yeah.
very much Scream 3, where
Yeah.
if you haven't seen it in a while, it's the idea that it's a movie being made within a movie. Jennifer Tilly is playing herself for a long period of time. Redman, it's the 90s. Well, actually, it wasn't the 90s, it was 2004, but it makes me feel like the 90s.
Oh,
Redman
How
played
High
it.
was like one of my favorite movies in 2004.
It's a good movie. Quentin Tarantino was originally signed on, like officially confirmed to play the part that Redman plays. But they
That's
had
so
a lot
funny.
of problems with production and budget, and so they ended up shooting in Romania. And then when that happened, Quentin was like, "I don't have the time. I can't do it." And Redman, I don't know how he got signed on, but I think he did a great job.
Billy Boyd he was one of my favorite hobbits.
John Waters does quite a big cameo in this because he was a
Mhm.
huge Chucky fan, huge fan of the franchise. He actually almost sought out Don Mancini himself to be in it. Great kill too. It has a mix of CGI and practical effects with the burning of his face. I'm a huge John Waters fan, so anything
Yeah.
John Waters thinks is cool, I'm like, I have to think it's cool because it's
We've
John
talked about John Waters a couple times on
A
this
few times.
podcast
He's a-
because he's a favorite.
Well,
Totally.
he's so smart. He's so smart.
Oh, and honestly, like, of course he's a fan. It's very campy. Yeah. That is something I do like about this movie, even though, because it is self-referential, and I love meta horror and self-referential horror. And I love the fact that it brought Jennifer Tilly as Jennifer Tilly into it for later to be in the franchise again with the show, which is so good. I
Yeah.
loved it. Yeah.
Did you guys rewatch Seed of Chucky for this? Or did you have
Mhm.
time?
No, I did not.
Isn't it crazy how the big lasting thing that happens with Seed of Chucky, where Bride of Chucky was so popular and they really leaned into the silliness, is mostly their
Glenn.
children, I should say. And
Glenn's.
Glenn /
Mhm.
Glenda, which I made sure I really looked up like what, as far as we know, canon, the story about those two, because I wasn't sure if those two was one person who had split personalities or so, but it's actually two of them. Crystal, do you want to tell us how Glenn or Glenda comes about in that movie? Or do you want me to do it?
You can go right for it.
You're so nice to me. So, of course, I'm the one that brought it up. I forget it almost every time because it's. Do you remember, Justine?
No, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, and then I remembered, but I did not earlier.
Glenn or Glenda, who we first just know as just doesn't have a name yet.
Glenn,
It's
yeah, they
Glenn,
do.
but it's the personality of Glenn that is first. The character of Glenn
Introduced.
that's first prevalent within that doll body is kidnapped from obscurity by a ventriloquist who's making him do these weird shows. Blah blah blah. It's not really important. He sees an interview about the Chucky doll on TV, which is a movie being made starring Jennifer Tilly and all that stuff. And he decides to go find. He's like, I'm not an orphan after all. I gotta find my parents. And so he's trying to reconnect with his parents. And so he has the amulet of Dumbala somehow. God knows. God knows. Last we know, it was still on the corpse of, or in the graveyard at least, of Charles Lee Ray, or it would be in police evidence, if not still on his corpse. But God knows. Doesn't matter. And brings his parents back to life. And then there's the whole thing of the naming Glenn or Glenda being a reference to Ed Wood Jr., who did a movie, Glenn or Glenda, about a transgender person. Of course, I think they use the term transsexual, which is outdated. And starring Ed Wood Jr. It's there's the Mads, Frank Conniff and Trace Ballou from Mr. Science Theater do a lot of riffs on that movie. Then the idea of Chucky wants their child to be Glenn, our child's a boy, and then Tiffany's like, "Oh, I think our child's a girl," and then calls her Glenda. And,
Yeah.
and it becomes apparent through the movie later that Glenn wakes up into Glenda. It turns get into a little bit later how that they're different. They're different people. It's like twins in the same body until this happens, which is I don't. This little. So what happens is that they want to all of them to have human bodies again. They
Mhm.
kidnap these other people for Tiffany and Chucky. they're kind of irrelevant. I don't want to go into it. That doesn't really matter. They don't matter in the movie either. And they take Jennifer Tilly, they kidnap her, and Chucky, like there's the first doll sex scene in Bride of Chucky, then Chucky masturbates in Seed of Chucky, and so Tiffany has a turkey baster of Chucky's doll sperm and then injects it into
Seed.
Jennifer Tilly.
Hence seed of
I'm
Chucky.
sorry. I'm so sorry. So let me say that again, so I don't have to see sperm on YouTube. When this
Nobody
goes
wants
into
to
the
hear the
edited
word
version.
sperm.
It's a medical term.
I don't really want to hear the
Justine.
word seed either, but it's the name of the movie, so here we are.
Here we are. So Chucky pleasures himself, and Tiffany takes the seed of that occurrence and puts it into Jennifer Tilly, who gives birth to twins. And that's pretty much how Glenn and Glenda come about. And then the whole
Baby
franchise-
batter.
baby what?
Sorry.
Oh,
Baby batter. Yes,
That's
push
worse
the
than
button,
marinate.
Oh my
Is a turkey
God.
baster, and that's when
Paywall. I'm just kidding.
and that's when so that came out in 2004, and it is until 2013 the whole franchise
Mhm.
takes a whole 180 again with Curse of Chucky.
This is when we're introduced to Nika.
Fiona Dora. We
Yeah.
love her.
It's one of my biggest crushes. I think that in the TV show, when she's dressed as Charles Lee Ray, her father, and it's one of the fucking hottest things that ever happened on television. Oh my god. Anyway,
I can see it.
I don't know. Is that a daddy issue thing?
probably is.
Hey, I'm not going to yuck your yum. Nika is one of the characters that's really hard for me in this whole franchise because of, and spoiler alert, if you haven't seen season 1 of the Chucky series, what happens to her
Oh my god.
at the end of that? Like,
stunning.
this
It's-
girl hasn't been
Oh,
through enough.
God.
You guys already know how I feel about body horror. That is the kind of body horror that fucks me up, like mentally. Like I'm still not recovering.
I will say what happens to her at the end of season 1 of Chucky. The rest of it is there's a lot of fun kills. There's some dark things. Our main character.
Well, I have
father
everything up
died.
until that.
Then it gets super. That is way darker than anything else in the show. I'm like, what? Damn.
No,
I don't know.
I would say no,
argue
way
there's a
darker
moment.
than the mom who
Yeah.
commits
Out of
who
the window.
unalives
That's
herself out
to
the
me.
window.
That's the darkest.
That's
I don't remember that.
that's
What
super
happened?
dark.
The Junior's mother, right? The cousin's mother.
Junior's
our
mom
main
Yeah.
gets
character.
pushed out a
They killed-
window, and then she lands on the car, and her face goes through the windshield right on top of him. And
Yeah,
that's
his
I
what
think
dark
what
for her.
happens to Nika is a little darker for me, only because I have a.
Mm.
Because as much as I like to,
I think
join
they're
our
equal.
Discord,
Yeah, they're
join our
probably equal.
Discord where we make fun of, not make fun of, but we poke at Justine for her feelings about Tusk. As much as we do that often in the Discord, I am very upset. Like Crystal,
you all
like
for
she's
that.
she's tough. She doesn't. You're
I
not
literally
affected by Tusk,
spam
right?
the chat to bury it from my phone so I could at least
Right,
be
it doesn't
in
affect
Discord with
you,
you
right?
guys.
Crystal, like you're not
No,
affected
it does
by.
not phase me.
No,
at
as
all.
much as I liked that movie and I was very impressed how Kevin Smith mixed something so ridiculous with so. It's very upsetting to me. I also, just like Steen, like I don't like looking at it. I don't like looking at the walrus person. I don't like looking at it. It's upsetting to me.
I love it.
I love the
You
movie.
love
and I
it?
love the
Like,
concept, but I don't
not
like
even I
looking
don't
at
mind
it.
it. I
upsets
love
me.
it. What?
It's
Like,
not like I
it's being
fantasize
transferred-
about it. I just appreciate it for a horror movie.
There seems like a little bit of a protest there.
Daddy issues.
I think you
guess,
fantasize about
don't
it, is what I'm saying. No, I was kidding.
know.
I'm kidding.
No,
It's not daddy issues. That's a whole nother thing.
I also don't have those.
The issues would be a godsend compared to I'm into walrus people.
So Nika, I think that what I was trying to get at with the mom's death was it was really dark to me. That was the point where I was like, whoa, this is real dark. This is like, because that was a series. I don't think a lot of movies or shows touch on mental health in that way because she was
Mhm.
suicidal before. She has that past on the show. When she goes to her therapist, they're like addressing that history. She comes out, she's feeling better, and then gets shoved out the window. So everybody thinks that she unalived herself.
Well, it's
That's
because she had
And-
cancer, so they thought she was like.
That's right.
That's what yeah.
Yeah, she had cancer, but she had history of suicidal thoughts because of that. And
And
so
the
they
character we're
thought that-
talking about is from the TV show specifically. We got a main
Yeah.
character that we're not going to skip all of the others. We're just to clarify. Our main character is a young boy who's so sweet. He is gay, which is part of the story. I'm not just mentioning that to mention it. He His father is murdered by Chucky, but it seems like a suicide, was suspected to be a homicide. Obviously, people don't think it's the doll. And he ends up living with his aunt and uncle and cousin. And it's his aunt doesn't kill herself, but she has cancer. She doesn't tell the family for a long time. Doesn't
Right.
want to bother her family, and it's really, that's also, wow, that's a very real life thing that happens. And you feel bad that she doesn't feel like she can tell her family. She doesn't want to upset them or hurt them. So she has cancer and she has a lot of suicidal ideation. And the family knows that eventually. But her death, which is caused by Chucky, everyone thinks that she killed herself, and that's upsetting to the family. So that's who that character is in relation
And
to
it,
everything.
yeah, and it sets up Junior's story arc, which I think is cool. Like, the show is actually my favorite of all of.
I love that everyone became a real person. There's certain
Yeah.
dialogue that's not realistic too. A teacher wouldn't swear that much and stuff, but it's not something that matters.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the way that the kids are in this show is it feels so grounded, even though it also feels over the top or like dark still. Like everybody is dark in this film or this show. They all have their problems and
Yeah.
are not good people, but they all have a lot of depth and they're all very relatable. The way that they did every character of this show and bounced it off of something so campy and over the top like Chucky and Tiffany's characters are, it seemed to me like the series is the perfect amalgamation of the entire franchise.
Agree.
First film, terrifying, very serious. After that, you can see a slow descent into super camp, like super camp. The show feels like it's just this perfect blend of both.
Yeah, I agree. They're very well fleshed out characters too. Like you care for them, but you also can see that they have this weird kind of dark side to them.
Most of my knowledge about Child's Play came from Andrew on TikTok. He mentioned like how Devon Sawa is coming back for season 2, but he's playing a different character. He's playing like a priest. And he said he thought it would be really cool if they decided to kill him off every season and bring him back every season
It's a great
Yeah.
idea.
as somebody else. Yeah, that's so brilliant. Like, I hope they do that. I don't know if they planned
they
on
do
it,
too.
but I hope they see that TikTok if they didn't plan on it and they do it, because I love Devon Sawa. When he died in the first season, I was sad. I was legitimately like,
Which character does he
Bye.
play in the
He plays the uncle and the dad. So he ends up
Happens
kind of
again.
parenting Jake, the main character, like both ways technically. 'Cause
yeah,
after his dad commits suicide,
He
gets
also was
or
in,
was accidentally killed. Whatever.
he plays a doctor in Curse of Chucky. He's also in Curse of Chucky, which is
Devon
how
Sawa
was,
is?
yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
And our reason we got so much into the series already is because the character of Nika, played by the super cool, super hot Fiona Dorff,
Yeah.
is introduced from Curse of Chucky, and she's very much a component into the show. And Curse of Chucky becomes a serious horror film again. And it's another film that a lot of people that are fans of the franchise, some love it, some hate it. I think it's okay, but also really love it. I think it's a really good movie. It does reach into Charles Lee Ray / Chucky's connection with this family. It's about a family where we don't know in the beginning. Charles Lee Ray was a family friend of this random family. It is random. It's a random family, and kidnaps one woman who is pregnant. And while she's pregnant and he's kidnapped her, he stabs her in a certain way, and that ends up why Nika, who played by Fiona Dorff, is in a wheelchair. She's born and she can't walk. She's in a wheelchair. Fiona Dorff is not in a wheelchair, but her character is. And so that's Charles Lee Ray's connection to Nika, his connection to that family, which the whole family in this really awesome, fucking awesome looking gothic house. Fucking love that
My
house in that
favorite
movie.
house. Yeah, me too.
So nice. And so the movie is mostly about a little girl, and I can't remember how they get. I wasn't able to rewatch it. I can't remember how Chucky gets to the house, but there is a little girl, and
She was
kinda
gifted
Gets
the doll.
delivered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
gifted the doll. But
She gets a
there's-
package right away.
Yeah.
It's always a package in this series, since Kurt, like Chucky's always sent to somebody, but usually Tiffany is at the very end of this movie. She's not in the rest of it, but it is actually treated like a serious horror film. Chucky doesn't talk.
Chris
until-
Sarandon is in this one too.
Who's Chris Sarandon play?
The original detective from Child's Play.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's like in archived footage or something in the film.
Okay, probably the
Yeah.
kill. Because so we do get Brad Dourif playing Charles Lee Ray again for the first time, and I think the last time so far, as in a flashback that's shot in black and white to show how he knows this family somehow.
Yeah.
The character of Alice, who's the little girl in this, who's not even a main character in this, but she's the connection with Chucky, is mentioned again in the next movie, Cult of Chucky. But besides that, we haven't seen her again. According to Cult of Chucky, and they don't really aren't faithful to continuity all the time. She's dead, but I wouldn't be surprised if Alice makes an appearance again. But it's really treated like it's like doing Child's Play over again, but making it actually even more serious. And Chucky doesn't talk till past the halfway point. This is actually my favorite look of Chucky. The Chucky dolls that you can, the Mezco ones aren't very great looking, but the Trick or Treat Studio ones are amazing. They look like dolls from the movie. And I've always been meaning to get a Tiffany and Chucky doll, but they only have one for a seated Chucky version, which would be the version I get if they don't make any others. And then the Chucky before he transforms, like the good guy Chucky. But I think my favorite look of Chucky throughout the whole series and the remake is from Curse of Chucky and then goes onward. He looks very similar and has the same scars as the Chucky from Bride of Chucky, but there's something cuter about him. He's got a cuter face. What do you guys think? Do you guys have a favorite
I
version
agree.
of Chucky?
I agreed with you in your TikTok when you talked about that today. Yeah, I think
why I
I
was
that
haven't
late.
seen that.
I like him having scars or some sort of cuts or something going on with him, but I like how they're not as overwhelming on his face in Curse of Chucky. Or is it Curse of Chucky? See, Curse of Chucky, right? He has the
Is that the one where he like covers up his scars and then peels all the stuff off?
Yes.
To reveal
in
his
Seed of
scars? Okay,
Chucky.
yeah.
Is it Seed
No,
of
it's not she. It's Curse of Chucky because
That's
the
Yeah,
little
Curse
girl
of
gets the
Chucky.
doll and he can't have this.
Yeah.
He looks normal and then peels it off and he has the
Yeah.
scars that he got.
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Bride of Chucky.
Yeah. But they're not as overwhelming on his face. So he still emotes a lot, which is good.
I think that's when they
Yeah.
really things started to evolve, and I think that the face emotes more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
A lot of people like Cult of Chucky.
I love Cult of Chucky. I fucking
Yeah.
love Cult of Chucky. What do you guys
That's a
think?
good one too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a good one. And I like the setting.
Curse though.
I like
The
Curse
setting.
too.
I love
I like
chili
it.
scene. The chili scene's one of my favorites. I don't know why.
Oh, when they eat the chili, we don't know which chili is poison. The one goes.
Yeah, and it's just like this really weird, like spinny camera and like really quiet. And you can see people chewing. It's just I don't know. There's something about it very captivating. Yeah, there's like rat poison in it. Yeah, I love it so much.
That's
I
a
think
good
they
thing,
mentioned
yeah.
it in the series too. There's something about chili mentioned again, and I lost track where. But that's the one thing about this franchise is it references itself a lot. As much as
It does.
they cheat on the continuity, they try to enforce it a lot as well.
I'm pretty sure they eat chili when what's his face goes to live with them.
Jake,
I'm pretty sure they're eating chili in that scene. Or they're eating
maybe.
chili when they visit him at his dad's in the first episode. I'm pretty sure there is a chili eating scene in the series because I can see the mom eating chili.
Cult of Chucky also is treated like a serious horror film, although they get artsy with the visuals. It's set in an insane asylum because
I love the setting.
I love the setting. I love it. I love the look. I'm not looking for realism when I watch a Chucky movie.
It's
I'm not
sterile. It's super
It's sterile.
sterile.
It's like hard to look at. It's so bright.
It's very
So what
white,
happens at the end of Curse? Spoiler alert, but it's been out for a while. You can still enjoy the movie. Is that pretty much the whole family except Fiona Dourif, Brad Dourif's daughter. Ika is blamed for the murders of her family, and she's sent to an insane asylum. And in the insane asylum, she's actually convinced by the psychiatrist, who's a creeper. But to be fair, this actual part of it is actually a normal thing. Is that Chucky isn't real. You killed your family, and you created this idea of something to deal with the fact that you killed your family, which makes sense, actually. She's in an insane asylum.
She bangs the guy in a stairwell.
Yeah, it's not. And because I love everything she does. I mean, besides Tiffany, Jennifer Tilly, Fiona Dourif is my favorite addition. Obviously, the asylum gets sent to Chucky. And this whole thing ensues. Andy Vincent is back in it. What's his first name? Alex Vincent makes a return. The movie starts with Alex Vincent on a date. And that's what I made the joke of. He could mention Google. It wasn't just internet search. But he does have a severed head of a Chucky doll in a safe. And we know that from the beginning. But we do see a Chucky that is intact sent to the asylum. So we're not sure. Not that it's jumbled, so you don't think about it too much. But you're like, I thought there was a talking Chucky head in Andy's safe. Why is there a Chucky at this asylum? So it builds up to an army of Chuckies. You guys like it? You guys
A
like
cult.
it, right?
I do like
Yeah.
it. I like it partly because it also ties up the whole issue with his blood mixing with a big batch of Chucky making goo and it not creating other Chucky dolls.
Yeah.
Why would he
Chucky
just
batter.
be in one? Chucky
It's
batter.
voodoo.
Yeah.
There's a
I
lot
think
of
the joke
there's a lot
is
of
that they
Chucky
got it
batter in
at
this.
one of the other Chuckies aren't from Chucky seed or batter. It's more from these Chuckies come from voodoo, which
Yeah.
is a joke. Which I think it'd be cooler if it went back to the third Chucky movie where his
Yeah.
blood gets in the batter. But this is just
Batter.
this happens from they looked on voodooForDummies.com is what they say, which is the dumbest thing in the entire movie. I gotta say that it's just a slight comment on how this all came to be. And of course, with all these cult of Chuckies, these Chuckies coming to life, how do you pull this off? You need a very sexy, competent, strong, smart woman. So Tiffany is in league with the Chuckies, helping this all happen, which she makes an appearance. She visits Fiona Dora's character and then as somebody else, and they meet. Because at the end, what ends up happening at the end, which ends up translating into the series and becomes a big part of it, is that Chucky, at the end of the movie of Cult of Chucky, he is able to transfer his soul into Fiona Dora's character, and she can walk, which doesn't make sense physically, that any brain or spinal disorder she has would make another soul would make sense. It's a physical thing. It's a physical thing. It doesn't matter who's up there in the brain, but whatever. It's fine.
I think because the doll can move when he's inside of it, even though a doll doesn't have a brain stem or neurons firing or
That's true.
anything, and it's
Well, the
slowly
more time
becoming
he's
more
in
human.
that
Like
doll
she's a
body,
doll.
he can move.
Right. The more he's in the doll body, the more has human issues,
Attributes.
actually. Not even attributes. He always had human attributes. What he started to gain was human weaknesses because you can't kill an inanimate object like a doll. But the more it became human, the more you could injure and kill it. The more it did have human weaknesses and healing and all of that. And him and her probably is the same concept, I would assume, that
Yeah.
except for she is human, so instead he's using her like a vehicle. And I wonder if over time she would lose her inability to walk again.
Well,
Like
she
he
does
would,
at the end of the series.
Well.
Other reasons.
because she like banishes him into right.
No, because Tiffany cuts off her legs and arms.
Oh, in the series, yeah,
She does lose capability in the series though when they have the hostages in the house and then she like
yeah,
snaps out of being Chucky for a minute. She like
yeah,
loses that.
yeah.
It's
But I
whoever's
wonder
in
if he would have,
charge.
yeah, whoever's in charge of the brain.
Yeah.
But I wonder if the longer he's in the body, if he would get more of her like normal body, which means like over time he would lose the functions that he has because she would become
That's a
more
good point.
herself as a
Maybe,
body, similar to him
because they're
becoming more human in a doll.
It's
Yeah.
supposed to take place during the time. So 2017 is when Cult of Chucky came out, and then 2021 is the setting of the series. So it's been a few years, but that doesn't mean over time, if the body hadn't had its legs chopped off, if eventually the physical attributes of Fiona Dora's character wouldn't be attributed to also the possession of Chucky.
How do you
So
think they're going
fucked
to
up.
use her in season 2? Like, how do you think they're
I
going to
don't
utilize
know.
this new thing?
So
I'm very curious.
Tiffany is so badass, and I love Tiffany, but this is going a little too far, Tiff.
Yeah, she's
Tiffany-
really off her rocker now.
She's a loony, yeah.
What is their goal? To just murder a lot of people with Chucky dolls in homes or world dominate? What is the goal? Just to murder a lot of people?
I'm just under the assumption that they're just sending out a bunch of dolls across the nation and they're just probably hoping for that, yeah.
Wreaking mayhem.
Country domination, I don't know.
I don't think it's domination or anything. I think it's the same thing that any mass murdering serial killer wants to accomplish, which is fame, notoriety. They like to kill and cause problems. They're both hedonists. They just take pleasure in it.
And especially Tiffany, more so than Chucky. Tiffany takes a lot of sexual pleasure from it. Like she's very turned on.
Yeah, which makes the whole situation with Nika even fucking sicker.
I
She's
know,
like in love with her.
Yep. And now she's a I don't know what you'd call her. A
What? Like
torso.
she's been with Chucky for so long that she's happy with like dolls, like
Maybe.
and like
Oh, maybe she'll turn
inanimate
her into an
objects.
actual doll. Maybe she will put like little
Mm.
fake arms and legs on her and make her into a doll.
Ooh, interesting.
That'd be kind of
So that
I
would be
don't like
cool.
that. I would rather her become a voice actress and just
That's like
be
the
a
walrus
doll.
thing.
Like an
That is
actual
very
doll.
much like the walrus thing.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I don't know
Please
that
don't
with
do that. Oh my
prosthetics.
god.
They've come a far way with prosthetics. They've come a very far way with prosthetics, and it could happen pretty well.
They're not
I
going to
have-
make it look nice though. They're going to purposely make it look all disheveled and sick and gross.
Like a
If they did
doll.
that, they would.
I'm not sure how.
Sorry.
So the thing that happens to Nika, Fiona Dorff's character, who is a paraplegic, but not when Chucky's in control of the body, is it's at the very end of the last episode of the first season. Is that Tiffany starts falling in love with Fiona Dorff's character because she's not an asshole like Chucky is to her. Chucky's not a good partner. He's an asshole. Makes her feel like nothing all the time. They'll have fun and they do these.
She's enjoying the power dynamic.
Sex and murders. That's very well put, Justine. It's the power dynamic, and also it's somebody that doesn't treat her like shit. It's a combination of that. And she's worried that Fiona Dorff's character is going to run away somehow, or run away when she's Chucky or something. She just doesn't want her to leave, so she cuts off her arms and her legs. Which I didn't remember the arms part, even though it was upsetting to me. But I was talking to Crystal. Just
Nubbies.
rewatched the whole season 1. I thought it was just the legs, and it's
Nope,
upsetting.
just nubbies, bandaged up
Nubbies.
nubbies.
All 4. Yeah.
So I don't know what they're gonna
I
do with
just
that.
remember
Although-
her like moving her arms.
It's like
It
the
was
butterfly effect. He's just got the little nubbies. Ooh, it creeps
One thing
me
that I
out.
do,
They almost lost me in that moment. That show almost lost me.
It's
Really?
upsetting.
It's very upsetting. She's not a bad character. Like, there's nothing irredeemable about Nika. Nika is 100% innocent from the beginning. There's nothing. It's depraved. It's almost like they're really wanting you to hate Tiffany. They really want you to hate Tiffany, and
Which
they're
is hard
actually
to
having
do
you
'cause everyone loves
sympathize
Tiffany.
with Chucky because Chucky is
Oh.
befriending what's his face so much and supporting him so
But
much.
we know it's fake. No, everyone. That's the
I
whole
don't
thing
think
is
it's
that
fake.
it's
I don't think
100%
it's
fake.
fake. No, I don't think it's fake. I
Everyone
think
knows it's fake.
there's manipulation to get him to want to be more like him, but I don't think it's fake. I think he does believe those things. I think he does actually care, or
I don't think he
does
cares.
actually. I think that he does
That's my
actually
opinion.
believe those things. I know.
Mhm.
I think he does actually believe those things and feels that way to a degree. Whether he cares actually about the person that he's giving those thoughts and feelings to, no. I don't think he actually cares about Jake, but I do think that he cares about himself and his own beliefs and ideas enough to impart those, and they happen to relate. And it helps him manipulate Jake. But I do think that he actually thinks it to like be upset of someone's sexuality. Like, I feel like that's just Chucky. Chucky just doesn't care about
Oh,
that
but the whole
stuff.
sexuality part, yeah. I think Chucky
Yeah.
used the fact that he had a gender fluid kid just to relate to Jake. I don't think he cares about people's sexuality. He has no prejudice against that, even though he's a misogynist, but he doesn't care about people's sexuality. But
Yeah.
I do think that he used that to try and relate to Jake, to make him say, "Hi, I'm not a
Mm.
monster. I'm not a bad guy." So most of the premise of the first season is that this kid who is how old is he supposed to be? Like 14? Like he's
Something
not a
like
little
that, yeah.
boy.
I think he's like a junior in high school. He's not like a senior or anything.
He's a sophomore or junior in high school, so
Yeah.
he's not a little boy, but he likes vintage dolls and he fixes them up and different things. So he picks up a Chucky doll, not having
Yeah.
any idea about it from a yard sale or something. And he has a dad that doesn't understand him, which Mancini said he wrote about his own father, not understanding his own sexuality. Mancini is, famously a gay man within the horror community. And he said that he did write a little bit about the Chucky series 1 about his own bringing up and people not
Experiences.
understanding. The overarching premise is that Chucky is trying to get Jake to be a killer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Recruiting
marks
him.
against. There's a lot of things that ostracizes Jake from other people. He's just a different kid, separate, like not relating to his sexuality, just is into his own things. And his cousin, who he ends up living with, is super popular kid, but has his own troubles. Like, because all these characters are put in real situations. His cousin, who's a popular kid, we also see the pressures the popular kid's father
perform.
puts on him to
Yeah.
perform in something he doesn't even want to do. So we really start for the mean girl, who's the girlfriend of his cousin, the popular kid. At first, is really just a stereotypical trope mean girl, but then
Yeah.
she becomes a real person, and I really liked
Mhm.
that. And
Yeah.
the overarching thing is that Chucky's trying to relate to Jake, our main character, this kid, to get him to be a killer. He's trying to convince him to kill somebody. Like, hey, they deserve it. All this kind of stuff. And one of the moments is Jake's sexuality comes up for some reason with Chucky. A conversation Jake, our main character, is having with Chucky, and he's like, "Hey, I've got a gender fluid kid. I'm not a monster. I don't mind about that." And one thing I'm most excited for season 2 is that Glenn and Glenda are gonna be in season 2.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've
Yeah.
only seen a picture for Glenda. The actor who plays Glenn and Glenda in the series is
Lachlan Watson.
Yes, Lachlan Watson, who was a non-binary actor who was in the new Sabrina series.
Yep.
With what's going on with Glenn or Glenda, because it's not super clear in Seed of Chucky, and we don't really hear or see much of Glenn or Glenda until the TV series. And the idea is, from what I gather, is that they're twins and they're put in the same doll body. And
Mhm.
Glenda was just dormant, and Glenn was dominant. And then Glenda woke up and started to enjoy killing. Glenda's like the bad one, and Glenn is the good one. And then they were put into the human bodies, which we see at
Mhm.
the end of Seed of Chucky, played by the same actor. And I'm really excited for both characters to appear.
Chucky, if still really good and innocent, or dark and scary,
I think
and
Glenn
how
is
that's gonna
going to
play
be
out.
the innocent one, and
Okay.
Glenda is going to be the murderous one, like in
I
the
can't wait
end
to
of
see how that
Seed.
plays out and
Yeah, I'm
how well
curious.
they do that, because that is a performance.
I've seen a
Mhm.
picture.
Yeah.
They have a picture out. I assume that's Glenda, but I haven't seen a picture that implies it's not Glenda but Glenn. But super cute. Super cute
Mm.
nonetheless. Like the
Yeah.
whole, it almost looks like, even though this person is in their early 20s, it still looks like they took a Chucky doll and made it a person. It looks really cute. I'm upset. I'm upset what
I
she
love
did
it.
to Fiona.
It's
Good.
setting, but I love that they went so much darker. Like the show was
I
so
love
much
that they
darker
went
than I was
there.
expecting.
It's so
Yeah.
dark.
It's darker
pushed
than
it.
anything that's happened in the movies, I think. That
Yeah.
particular
Yeah.
thing in the show.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, the first episode, there's a lot of good moments. I think
Mhm.
maybe it was the second episode where he starts talking and they're at
Second
the
or
like
third, yeah.
assembly or whatever. He basically like makes fun of everybody like on
Mhm.
stage. That's such a good scene. Like,
Yeah.
I love
Oh, yeah,
every such a good moment. The scene like of the dad dying was the first main kill
It's a
of
little
the
comical,
show.
but it was
It
still
is a
funny.
little comical, but it was like intense too. It was very
Yeah.
long. Like
It was.
comical would have been shorter, but the fact that they just kept it going for so long made
He's
it like
electrocuted
really,
to death, for those that
Yeah.
don't know. It's quite
yeah.
long.
And then Lexi like dresses up as him for Halloween.
Oh my
That's
god!
ew. That
They
was
That is the
did.
meanest girl
evil.
thing I think I've ever seen in anything.
Yeah, that was rough. I don't
Yeah,
know
they
how he
made
ever
her
forgave.
super mean, like almost
So mean.
irredeemable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't forgive her if she did that to me. Like that was
No.
evil.
And they become like pals, like they work together later. So what was your guys' favorite, including the series of the franchise? I would say my favorite is the series and then the original Child's Play, the first one, and then Bride. No, Bride. Series,
Yeah, I'd
Bride,
say Bride.
original.
I think I almost agree, but I would go Bride series original, probably. And then
Yeah.
probably Child's Play 2. I don't know. Hard to
I
say.
feel like my top 3 are like almost equal.
Yeah.
Like
They're
they're
very
so
close.
so close. Yeah.
I think it's a popular opinion, but I think that the third one is my least favorite because it's just
Mhm.
repetitive. There's really not much
Mhm.
added to it. So it feels repetitive within the series, especially a series that's so different from each other.
Mm.
I love a lot of the queer representation in Seed of Chucky. Bride
Yeah.
of Chucky has a lot of dated humor that felt dated even for the time. And even though I love that movie, I do love it. Like the doll sex scene, for some reason, I cringe every time. Not because it's offensive at all. It's just not funny. It's not funny to
No.
me. Like it's like
No,
a
it's
dumb
not.
joke.
Those
And
aren't
it's
the moments that
long.
are funny for sure.
It's
Yeah.
a long, dumb joke, but I love the whole series. I really do. It's a
Mhm.
lot of fun. It's comforting. I really think the Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky, which are both different from each other too, are really enjoyable. I really can't compare them to Seed and Bride because they're so
Right.
different.
Mm.
And
They
they're
are.
just a whole other era. I feel like Chucky, more than any other famous slasher, I think the other one would be Ghostface and Chucky are the
Mm.
famous slashers that really reflect the era of horror that they take place in. And they take
Yeah.
enough time away from each other from the next one. I think that if you really want to get a taste for horror of the specific time, whether you're into Scream didn't start till the 90s, but when
Yeah.
you're watching one from the 90s or into the 2000s or 2010s, they're really the strongest reflection of
Yeah.
slashers in that era. I really don't feel like I can even compare Curse and Cult to Child's Play 1 through 3. I think my favorite part of Child's Play, the original, is Catherine Hicks, who's the mom. You really
Yeah.
feel for her. I'm not joking. I do cry when she works at a department store and she can't afford to buy the Chucky doll for her son. And she's really
Mhm.
upset. She's a single mom. She doesn't have a lot of money. And the Chucky doll costs $100, which with inflation, I looked it up, would be $249 for a toy. Which
It would be the equivalent of buying a PlayStation for your kid today.
That's even more
Yeah.
money now, like a new one, like a new.
I mean, the
it's
equivalent of
like
like
a
you can't
Game Boy or a
afford that
Switch.
everybody has or wants. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for 1988. That's a really expensive toy. They don't have gaming consoles. That's like as much as you
Mhm.
can get with an
Yeah.
average children's toy. And she's a good mom. She cares about her son. It's hard because she works as well. And so Catherine Hicks is my favorite part of that. Child's Play 2, which the series is molded a lot after Child's Play 2 because that tends to be the fan favorite. And as a movie where the plot really goes along more, there are more kills, there's more fun moments with Chucky. Although I don't know, Catherine Hicks, she stole my heart in that first movie as a mom that's trying her best.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess 3 is my least favorite, but that's the best I can do because it's really hard for me to rate them. They're so different from each other.
Yeah.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. If you guys are watching want to tell us your favorites, you can hop in our Discord. Let us know what your guys' favorites are. Also, let us know in the comments. We can have a discussion there if you'd like, if you prefer. If you're watching us on YouTube, then you've probably already started watching the first episode of the new season. So go ahead and let us know in the comments what you thought of the first episode. We'll be there to also let you know what we thought of the first episode.
Howard
It's
said,
just
"See
right
the
around the
first
corner.